Have you ever met a saint? Have you ever known somebody that you're like, if they're not in heaven with God, there's no hope for me? Um, I want to tell you about one such person that I know, maybe more than anybody else. His name is Steve McDonald, police officer, detective Steve McDonald. Steve's story is that when he was a young cop, he got shot by a punk kid in Central Park, and from that shooting, he became paralyzed from the neck down and spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair and hooked up to a breathing machine. Steve McDonald spent the rest of his life spreading a message of mercy and forgiveness because he forgave the kid who shot him. He kept in touch with him while that kid was in jail and made sure he knew that he was forgiven, and that was his big message. Steve was somebody that inspired you because in spite of his challenge, he would get around and try and inspire other people and move other people to forgive, because people would realize, well, if he could forgive that, I guess I should forgive other things in my life. One of my best memories of Steve was that he used to come and visit my youth groups at various churches I worked at. And when I was in New Rochelle, at the big rally where all the kids came to meet him, he found out that we were going to that next weekend have a protest against hunger. And the kids were going to walk through the streets, educating people about hunger and protesting against the fact that, there were starving people in this world. And when Steve heard that, he was like, I'll be there. And he was. It was pretty amazing just to be able to go through the streets of the city with Steve there in his wheelchair, right along with all these kids. And I'll always remember the reaction of the New Rochelle cops who saw him, because they knew him, and it moved them to see Steve McDonald in their city, in their streets, standing up for something that was important. And yeah, like I said, Steve has got to be with God in heaven. But I want to tell you something else about Steve. He challenged me. He definitely challenged me. And a saint will do that. What happened was that Steve left me stranded 3 times. Once he showed up so late that most of the kids he was supposed to speak to had left. And the other 2 times were 2 different churches where there was hundreds, at least 300 people in the church waiting for him. And he never showed at all. Never mind came late. He didn't show at all. And everybody would stay there thinking he's in a wheelchair. He's, got physical issues. Maybe he's just running late. I would call frantically, leaving messages. Are you okay? Are you on the way? What's going on? Nothing. Ending up that these people would turn around and have to go home. Happened twice like that. And each time, the day after, I was really concerned for him. I was like, this isn't right. Not a word here. And I called the next day, no answer, no nothing. And one time I found out that he honored a speaking engagement the very night after the one he didn't show for me. And in both of those cases, months later, Steve would leave me a message saying, I'm so sorry about that. Please forgive me. The apostle of forgiveness was challenging me to forgive. So a saint is not somebody you just put up on a pedestal, but if you really let them in to your life, okay, you really let them affect, they're going to challenge you. And Steve certainly did that to me. I'm going to share with you in a little while some very famous saints that I particularly feel close to and look up to. And just as to throw it out there to give you a few that you might want to also consider. God bless you. Oh, and remember, saints are not just special holy people. They're our role models. They're our friends. They're our guides. They're praying for us. But sainthood, to be a saint, to be a holy person, is not just for a few. It's something that we're all meant to strive for. Okay? Glad I remembered to say that. There are so many saints that are known or declared, or many people know about them. Of course, there's always the saints, people that live very holy lives that nobody but their own family or neighbors knew them. But there's some famous ones. I'd like to tell you about some of the famous ones that I really admire and look up to and ask to pray for me. There's my saint, Saint Anthony. He was known as an amazing preacher, miracle worker, and he is the saint to pray to if you lose anything. Okay, he is the man. I can't even tell you how many things were lost in hopeless places that turned up after praying to Saint Anthony. So he really works on that. Apparently that's what he enjoys doing in the afterlife. There's Saint Joseph, the foster father of Jesus. He is the patron of workers. He was visited by angels. He was faithful to Jesus. He gave Jesus a foundation, and he was the guy that in faith, stayed by Mary and Jesus, and he's really a really special, amazing saint. Mary, of course, is so special. She gets her own God shot, and also an entire video I've done. I love Saint Michael the Archangel. He is the patron of those who protect soldiers, police officers. He is also somebody that you want to have driving along with you in a car. He is a protector. I have a statue of him. I have several statues of him in my house and in my yard, and I consider him one of my favorite saints. St. Francis of Assisi is also an amazing saint. He known as the barefoot saint. He rejected a life of comfort and ease, and he definitely gave it all up and lived a life of poverty. He believed in following Jesus exactly the way it's meant to be, and he got a group of men to follow him, and they still do exist. I don't think they're barefoot the way he was, but they follow a life of poverty and simplicity, and it's certainly a life that I've striven for. Saint Teresa, the Little Flower, was a very gentle, loving, simple young saint, and she is also a big miracle worker from heaven. If you pray for her intercession and you are somehow given a rose or you smell roses, it's a sign that she has heard you and she is working on your behalf. Saint Augustine was a bad boy that really turned his life around. His mom, Saint Monica, prayed for him nonstop, and he was like really a depraved kind of person, but he flipped that all around and became one of the greatest saints. St. Francis Xavier was a missionary and was bold about bringing Jesus to places in the world where nobody else had done that. Padre Pio, St. Padre Pio, is another miracle worker, one of the patrons of what is considered lost causes. If you know of anybody that's dealing with drug addiction, that's dealing with a screwed up life in any kind of way, ask Padre Pio to pray for them. He was an amazing saint. He had the ability to bilocate. That means he could be in two places at once. He also, like St. Francis of Assisi, was given the stigmata, which is the wounds of Christ on his body. And he was somebody who regularly saw the angels and the saints. And he also did battle with the devil. The devil came after him, and he suffered a lot at the hands of the church at the time. His faith was really, he was really tested, but he was persevering in his commitment to his vocation and to Christ, and has been named a saint. So many people love Padre Pio. Maximilian Kolbe gave his life at the concentration camp of Auschwitz during World War II. Somebody else was supposed to be killed, and that man had a family, and Maximilian Kolbe, a priest who was also at the concentration camp, because not just Jews were persecuted, there were many other groups, including Catholics and especially Catholic priests. But he said, no, I don't have a family, take me instead. And he sacrificed his life and was a very godly man, great saint. Speaking of great saints, there's St. John Paul II, probably known as St. John Paul the Great. He single-handedly brought down communism by, empowering the people of Poland to stand up for their freedom, but was really more than political. He was anchored in Christ. He ushered the church into the 21st century. He made a lot of changes. He named a lot of other saints. And he was courageous. One of the biggest memories I have of John Paul II was how it was days after 9/11, he made a visit right into Osama bin Laden's backyard and was bringing the good news, bringing the message of Jesus to people in a part of the world that everybody was scared of. And yet he fearlessly, as a very old and frail man, did that. And that was pretty courageous. Of course, there is St. Mother Teresa of Calcutta. She started a group of nuns to work with the poorest of the poor. And she was and is still an incredible inspiration. Lived very simply, so do her sisters, and they do amazing work with people that nobody else really wants to bother with. St. Teresa of Avila was another great saint. In fact, we got 3 St. Teresas, pretty amazing. But she was very famous for her teachings, her spirituality. She also had a group of sisters that she led. St. Philip Neri was a joker, tremendous sense of humor, and loved youth. And there's a great documentary out there about him. I guess it's a drama documentary that really caused me to fall in love with him, and I had never really known much about him before that. There is 2 more I'd like to tell you about, especially in the Latino world, and really for all of us. One is Oscar Romero. St. Oscar Romero, Bishop of El Salvador, was a very kind of a bookworm kind of guy, very timid, but yet as his people were persecuted, he stepped up and he gave his life for his people. He was shot down, gunned down while celebrating Holy Mass. And he is the patron, of course, of El Salvador. And he is just an amazing saint for all of us to look up to. And for all the young people that are watching this Godshot video, listening to this, I want to encourage you to ask for the intercession of St. Jose Sanchez, a young kid in Mexico that gave his life, persecuted for claiming Cristo Rey, Christ is King. Okay, Viva Cristo Rey, long live Christ the King. And the atheists who were at war with the people standing up for their Catholic faith, they killed him. And he died at a young age. He refused to buckle, and he stood by Christ to his death. And he is a great role model, great inspiration, and I'm sure he prays for all young people, especially those who are Mexican young people. Okay, so this is just a few. Make a move by looking into these saints. I gave you a short description, but if you look into their lives, maybe you'll find other things that I didn't say that are pretty cool about them. And know that they got our backs. They're in heaven with Almighty God, and there they want as many of us to join them in heaven. So trust me, you got them on your side. So go for it and take on a few new saints to be your best buddies up in heaven. Okay, God bless.